What's up, you beautiful people? Welcome back to Unaligned and Unfiltered. I'm your host, Jack, or the Twisted Wanderer, and welcome back to Twisted Thursdays, where every Thursday we'll be talking about the twist of our lives. Continuing on last week's theme, we're going to continue this week talking about grief. I'm going to share more personal experiences with grief. I'm going to talk about the 5 stages of grief. I'm going to answer some questions about grief. So, I know this may be a strange word to say about this, but I'm very excited to talk about this with you all because grief affects so many of us. Approximately 57% of American adults have experienced a major loss in the past 3 years, and studies estimate that each death leaves an average of 9 people grieving. And those are just like what we know. So this just sharing this with you because that's more than half of us, right? It's a lot of people being affected by grief every year. And I'm excited to talk about it because I'm excited to build this safe space for all of us. So if you're joining and listening to this episode today, please make sure you have a safe space to listen. Make sure you're comfortable in a good place for this episode. It may be heavy, it may trigger something. So please take your time, whether you need to pause or step away from this episode as we talk about grief and as I do share my experiences with grief and loss. So, yeah, with that said, let's talk about grief. So, the first thing I want to talk about with grief are the 5 stages of grief. So, we have 5 stages of grief. And let it be known that they are not at all linear, okay? These stages that I'm going to say, it doesn't mean that you should feel them in this order. Some people completely skip a phase and then years later come back to that phase and feel those emotions. Again, grief is very different for all of us, especially depending on the type of loss that we've had. And that's something we'll begin to delve into as well as we continue our Twisted Thursday. But let's just kick it off so we understand. Let's first talk about what grief is. So, what grief is it's your experience after loss. Where mourning is like our outwards personality to the world after we have gone, like while we're grieving, right? But grief is personal, it's inward, it's our own journey to understanding what's happening after we lose a loved one, someone we love and care about very much. So that's the difference between grief and mourning. And grief is just an internal process for us. It looks different for everyone. So let's talk about the 5 stages, right? So the first stage is denial or shock. So this is very I definitely have felt this stage. I guess we could start off right there talking about I've definitely felt denial and shock with Jake's death. So just, when you get that first initial sentence out of someone's mouth telling you that your person has passed away, that your loved one has died, um, I think a lot of us can't fathom a world without them, or maybe we just spoke to them the day before, right? And when we're in denial, you can be in denial for a while. And all of these stages are very dependent on the person holding grief. So I would like to say that when I was told that Jake died, I was I was in denial for a long time. I'm still working through this in therapy, so I can't really say where or when these stages ended for me, because I feel like they are not linear and some of them are lifelong. So I won't go too much into that, but I've definitely felt denial with that, with many of my losses. I feel like you never get used to losing someone. It just becomes, yeah, you just never get used to losing someone. Denial happens with personally for me every death that I've experienced. Um, maybe not. I don't know. Don't quote me on that because we're going to talk about a lot of different things this season. But denial is the first one we talked about. It's when we first get that initial, you find out, you're in shock, and you're just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, how could this happen? I just spoke to this person yesterday. I don't understand. That really is denial. And I think sometimes we can hang on to that feeling. It can feel almost like a numbness, right? That it's not actually happening. So that is the first one. Then the second stage of grief is anger. So this kind of starts to set in. And I say they're not linear because they don't happen in a row, but they do bleed into each other as to like when we go back and feel things, right? So with anger, I think if you talk about denial, right? If you talk about denial, you're in this numbness, you're in shock, you're in disbelief. And once that kind of starts to settle, depending on when, um, you can sometimes get angry. Like, I'll promise you, your girl was pretty fucking angry when Jake first died. Okay. Um, you you blame yourself, you're angry at yourself, you're angry maybe at loved ones around you, you're angry at the doctors, maybe you're angry at the situation itself that is happening. But anger starts to creep up when we start to break that denial and that the reality is coming into our space, letting us know, like, no, this person isn't earthside anymore. This person is no longer here. I'm not going to be able to hug them. I'm not going to be able to get a phone call ever again from this person. And that's really, really hard to sit with. That's really, really hard to comprehend. Um, I remember, like, something that still makes me angry to this day is I remember Jake and I texted each other a couple of days before he died, and we told each other that we loved each other. And I lost those text messages, okay? Still to this day, pissed off, angry, because I feel like we want to hold on to things that we can from our people. So anger can still come up many years later, maybe not go away, but it definitely starts to surface once we start to crack the numbing feeling. Um, the third stage of grief is bargaining. And I found this one to be interesting. The more I'm just like researching. Um, and bargaining is definitely something I've done. A lot. It's pretty much all those what if sentences. Like, what if I've reached out sooner? What if gosh, like so many things come to mind. Sorry, things come up for me while I'm, talking about all this with you, but I just think about all the what ifs of a lot of these deaths that I have experienced, but it's really when you start to think that you could have stopped this person from dying, that anything, your actions could have saved them, right? With Jake, he passed away from a heroin overdose, right? So in my what ifs, and my anger, like, I was angry at that situation. I was angry and I was bargaining like myself, I was like, I would do anything to have this person back here. Like, what if I called again, texted again? What if I reached out more to let them know, like, they weren't alone? But at the end of the day, we all have our own journeys to walk, and we can only help as much as we can help. And at the end of the day, we just have to know that, like, there was love there, and they knew that. And, like, that's what I tell myself. I'm like, I loved Jake, and I still love him, and I know he loved me, and I know that, like, he wouldn't want me to feel guilty, right? I think, like, that's where I've started to turn that corner, but it's very hard to get there. It's very hard to feel like you c it's really hard to admit to yourself that no matter what you do, you couldn't have prevented this. And you don't want to, like, I won't tell you how to live your life, but bargaining gets really tricky because you don't want to feel this guilt for the rest of your life. You can't live like that. I can't live like that. So bargaining just gets really tricky because you offer yourself up, right? Like, I offered myself. I'm like, why couldn't you take me? Like, this is so fucking terrible. Like, I would do anything. So bargaining is just, it's a really hard spot to be in. Especially with that anger. Those two can fuck around and find out. um, and then as we keep going, then at stage 4, we move into depression. Is what it says. It's the realization of loss. So you can feel isolated with this. Maybe I think the best way to explain depression from the stage of grief is kind of put it this way. When someone first passes, you kind of have to you got to get your shit together because now you have to do honor the person's life, right? So you want to celebrate their life, you want to honor them. However, anyone honors their loved ones, past ones. But for Jake specifically, I imagine like I know what happened on my end. Specifically, I'm going to speak from my point of view. My point of view, my mom was told this. We all came together and rallied to be together, and just right away, like, people came over, like, I'm Italian, we food, manja, drinks, and just, like, in shock all together, talking about it out loud, crying, um, but then, like, you have to get arrangements in order, like, everything happens so fast when someone first passes away that I feel like depression takes so long to hit because of all the noise that's happening in the beginning of it. And um I think the best way to explain it is once all that settles, once we say goodbye for the final time, whether they're cremated, buried, um Jake's mom did something really beautiful where Jake's in a necklace of hers, and she cremated him and got him made into a diamond, and it's really, really beautiful. So whatever your final resting place of your loved one, once that's like settled, I feel like all the stages I just talked about come flooding in because now it's quiet. Whoever traveled to come in and see and be there for you and your family and honor the life of the person who's passed away. Once all that dust settles and it becomes quiet, it's a very haunting feeling. uh it's it's a lot to process, and I feel like that's when that depression slips in, and that one can last a very long time. All of these can. I think I lived with all 4 of these for a very long time with Jake's death. I have my days, but because of course, like, this isn't linear and we never get over losing someone. It's a miracle. Like, if you're listening right now and you've experienced any type of loss, even losses that people don't count. I believe, like, there's a specific word for it. But, like, let's say your soul animal, like your pet, right? Your fur baby, or just things like that. Everything counts. All these deaths are someone that you loved and something that brought you life, and you couldn't expect life without them. So just know you're valid in any loss, and that this is a safe space to talk about those losses as well. Um, so the final stage of grief is grief. Did I say Greece? The final stage of grief is acceptance, right? So that's not healed. Okay. I say healing all the time. I don't think I'll ever say healed. Like, there's so much to work through. um, but acceptance is, you know, I think your body begins to accept it. Your mind begins to accept it. And then we can keep working through all those other stages mentioned above. Because once we do accept that this is our new reality, our person isn't here, and we have to keep living and going without them, that's that's really hard to comprehend. So, but I feel like once we get there, we can start doing the work, I guess. But honestly, who knows when that is, right? Like I told you, it's been 13 years since Jake, and I spent a lot of those first years, like definitely the first 5 years, 7 years, drinking most of it, my pain away. So it's just a lot to work through. Um, and so yeah, those are the 5 stages of grief. Um, Again, they're not linear. Some people may, let me kind of break it down like this for you both, for you all. So there's 2 types of grief I want to talk to you about today. One is called cumulative grief, which pretty much means more than one loss. Like a loss happens after you've barely had time to process the first loss. And this is something that I've experienced. So Jake passed in 2013. I had my spinal fusion surgery in 20 2016, 3 years after, right? And I had my surgery in September of 2016. So it had just passed Jake's 3 years in July. And then my grandma, my mom's mom, she's been sick with dementia for the past 5 years, um, in 2016. And she passed away 2 weeks after my spinal fusion surgery. Okay. So cumulative grief, along with yeah, a cumulative grief, right? So not really being over Jake's death. Then also we take in grieving my body because spinal fusion surgery, going through a very, very intense, traumatizing, life-changing surgery. And then my grandmother passing. That is a lot for any person. And loss is just a lot in general. One loss is I I don't have words for it. I really don't have words for it because I think it's a miracle that we're able to keep going. And the only thing that helps me the most to keep going is, or something that's helped me to continue on besides Jake, thanks, bro. Um, it's honoring them by living. It is telling myself, okay, they loved me so much and I love them so much, and that's why I'm hurting. How can I honor them by living? So that's what's helped me get to this place of talking about grief more, without like, chugging a beer or crying hysterical. And that there's nothing wrong with crying hysterical. It's just it's when we get to this point of being able to talk about it, I think it helps other people hopefully be able to talk about it and know, like, you're absolutely not alone and this shit does not happen overnight. So cumulative grief means you've experienced loss and now someone else's passed and you've barely had time to really comprehend or even navigate the initial first grief. And that can stack together, and it quite literally did. So yeah, just knowing that there's different types of grief. And that's something we'll continue to talk about as well. Because there's also And we're like, I knew Jake was struggling and like I knew he was struggling, but I know that he wanted to be good. I know that he wanted to be clean and be better. And I know what he wanted for himself. So like I never would have, you know, thought a few days later he would be gone. Like that was fucking terrible. And then how it happened, I'm not ready to talk about that. And I don't know if I will. But that whole situation made it so much more worse and made me so much more angry and sad. And then along with my grandmother passing 2 weeks after spinal fusion, being in a wheelchair, really not like being able to comprehend what's going on because I'm on my pain medicines from my surgery. Like when I look back to that, I feel like I didn't get to process it. And it's something I'm kind of processing now. Um, and yeah, I just really want to emphasize that there's different types of grief and there's different types of loss, and that kind of affects like our grief stages and how we work through this. Um, so yeah, I've definitely experienced some loss. And it's just it's so wild to me that the of what we're able to hold as humans. Um so like losing Jake in 2013, losing my grandma in 2016 after a major surgery. And then in 2018, we lost my pretty much bonus sister, like extra older sister. We lost her father. And that was heartbreaking. That was in 2018. So I feel like my life has just been ever since 2013, or even if I go back to 2012 when my um, best friend's brother passed away. He passed a year before Jake. Um, and I just feel like my life has been always surrounded by grief and loss. So I just really hope if you're listening and maybe this resonates with you, I just hope you know you're not alone, and that for some of us, we experience all types of death, loss, and we have to learn how to navigate it, because if we don't, we can end up in dark spirals like I did myself, like drinking and coping and just drinking and losing myself in a bottle and wanting to die and wanting to just be with Jake. And like, that is just a true reality of how I felt and how I've got here. It's so important to feel our feelings in safe spaces and to talk about this, because when we shove it all down and cope in a bottle, these feelings come up years later, which I've spoke about. That's why I started this podcast in October 2023. I know it took a while to talk about Jake, but like it's because all these feelings and everything I had experienced, all the loss, the surgery, isolation, it demanded to be felt, and I couldn't run away from it anymore. And I'll share with you all right now, like today is March 25th and I'm officially 44 days without alcohol. That's shocking. Okay. I would have never thought that that could even be a thing, because that was my biggest tool for so long. Um, and especially if you've been following the podcast, when I spoke in December about my mom's cancer coming back, like there are all these things that I need to take care of to make sure that I can continue on, because, um, for a long time, it felt like I couldn't, and that was really, really scary. So I just want anyone who's listening to know, like, please talk about your truth, whether it's just to me in an email or on the pod. Like, it's so important to talk about our feelings and to talk about what we've been through, whether that's journaling. And that kind of leads me into my next topic, which is what can we do to cope, right? How can we cope in healthy ways? Um, I'd love to say drinking, but it's not. I'm so sorry. If that's one of your coping mechanisms, listen, no judgment, never any judgment. Um, but it's not the best one as I'm learning because I'll tell you, 44 days of not drinking and really being able to feel things as they come up instead of ignore them with like a beverage if I need to. Um, has been so hard, but it's been really rewarding to learn where my head's at and how I feel. So, healthy coping mechanisms. The first and foremost one I want to recommend is therapy. Therapy with a good therapist that you vibe with, that you trust with, that doesn't pass judgment, that doesn't um, tell you that you should be over things by now. Like, find a therapist you trust and definitely start going and start talking about your journey. Because if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you can't escape without like grabbing that beverage, again, no judgment, and I'm not a medical professional. This is just someone who genuinely cares about you and who's experienced this. Start talking about it. Start maybe looking at different ways that you can cope because your loved one wouldn't want you to, you know, drown away. I think I have to tell myself, I don't think Jake would want me to drown in a bottle. And for a long time, I did. So definitely get some therapy. It's amazing. It's been life changing for me. Um, I also really recommend finding people in your life that share similarities. So, um, I know for me, like how I've been kind of doing this is like social media. It really can be a tool to lead you to people who have shared similar experiences. Um, if you don't already, and like maybe um, if you don't already, I definitely recommend as well, like podcasts, like Two Girls with Grief podcast, is one that I've been starting to listen to. And it just building things around you that make you feel seen. Because a lot of the time with grief, it's hidden. We have to mask throughout the day to get um, through life. And a lot of people just expect you to be okay because I think in at least our civilization, Western US, so sorry, bad, but yeah, Western, yeah. Please don't quote me on that. If I'm wrong, I do apologize. But like at least like we haven't been taught to walk with the ones that we've loved and to talk about them because that's what we should do. Like, it shouldn't be taboo if someone brings up talking about their loved one. Like, it may make someone uncomfortable, but no one grows from being in the comfort zone. If someone, and maybe if you are the person listening and you're a friend of someone who's had loss, like, if someone brings up their person, just let them talk about them. Let them talk about the funny moment that they're thinking of or maybe it's a sad moment and they just need a moment to talk about them. Like these things should be normalized and we need to start having these conversations so they can be because we're masking too much. Quite honestly, it was just exhausting to mask most of my life. So like, it just feels good to like come on here and talk to you about my experience and we're creating these spaces, right? So you don't have to cuz maybe you masked all day and now you're coming home and you're like, "You know what? I'm going to go on Online Unfiltered podcast. I'm going to listen because that's a place where I can honor and my loved one and be in that space." So I hope that I hope that makes sense. Like those two coping mechanisms for me have been life changing. Like going to therapy, getting more tools, learning about the why of how I feel, um, the dots that connect things, and like understanding my brain and trying to break down years of suppressing emotion and now honoring emotion and understanding emotion. So that's definitely why I recommend therapy and community. And going along with community, there will be community on the website that's going to come out, Twisted Collective. It should be out April 1st. Trying to figure a few more things out if I do have to push that date, but that will be a resource for you where we'll have community in there for these conversations, loss, grief, scoliosis, all that good stuff. So keep an eye out for that resource because that's definitely going to have more resources, blogs, all that good stuff on things that we talk about here on the pod. So I hope that will be a good resource for you. Um, I think that was, yeah. So those are my two recommended coping mechanisms that I strongly, strongly recommend. Other ones that have been helpful for me um, is journaling and going back to writing. I think when we first honestly, I'll be honest, I used to love writing, and then it became almost too painful, so I stopped, and now that I'm not afraid to feel my feelings anymore and that I'm in therapy and I'm starting to write again, it's been a great coping mechanism. So, definitely recommend, like, art or anything that can get the feeling of grief outside of your body because we carry it, you know? I carry a lot of grief in for me, it shows up really in right over my heart when I like do somatic work. I can like feel like the sadness almost of things when I rub like my chest and like you sit in your somatic work. So um it stays in our body. So we need to honor it and we need to find ways, healthy ways to honor it, to understand, and to listen to what our body needs. Going back to the body, really, that's something I need to do more. But somatic work is really good. Definitely start off slow. I'm literally still doing 2 minutes. 2 minutes of somatic work and just letting things and how I feel rise, maybe journaling after, drinking water, but definitely therapy, definitely community. Look out for the Twisted Collective website that will be coming. Community resources, all the good things will be on that website. And somatic work and definitely journaling. So, those are my 5 coping mechanisms that have been helpful for me, especially with like letting go of drinking or trying to let go of drinking. This is the longest I've gone without a beverage is 44 days. So, um, and that's my journey. I just share it with you because, you know, if you're on that, like, no shame here. Like, we don't know what we don't know. Like, that was my only coping mechanism that I had. So, a lot of us who experience grief and loss kind of just don't know what to do with it when we first get it. And it is such a painful experience. So, however you're doing it now, hey, it got you to here. Like, that's what I think of. I'm like, that version of myself got me here. So, just like give ourselves grace because it's fucking hard. Okay? Okay. Now, with that said, it is twist and tell. Twist and tell time. So, I'm going to answer some questions from you beautiful people. I believe all of these are anonymous today. Yeah, it looks like they are. Okay. So I'm going to answer a couple of these. The first one that stands out to me actually is I feel guilty when I laugh. Is that wrong? Ha! I love this one. No, it is not wrong. Your loved one would want you to laugh. And sometimes Sometimes I make jokes, okay? Like dark humor jokes, and I look up at the sky or I'll look across my way and be like, that was funny, wasn't it, Jake? You thought that was funny. Um, or Mr. Rick, who passed away, which is I mentioned him a little earlier, my best friend's father who passed away in 2018. We had to unplug him. That was terrible. But we make jokes because Mr. Rick really enjoyed drinking Bud Light. And he recently, before he passed, had switched to drinking Stella. So we make jokes that Stella killed Mr. Rick. So, like, it's no, 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 no. Do not feel guilty to laugh. I feel like grief and loss it's so misunderstood. Like, once you really start to just sit with it more and yeah, no, I just, no, absolutely don't feel guilty when you laugh. Take in those moments where you laugh at something. You are forever changed when you go through grief and trauma. So you'll never be the same, but it really does add this hilarious part of you that's dark humor. And, only a few of us get to understand it. And don't feel guilty when you laugh. Enjoy laughing. It's important, especially with grief and love. So, absolutely no, there is nothing wrong with a little laugh. Right, Mr. Rick? All right. I hope that one was helpful. Um, Another question we'll go to. How do I handle birthdays and anniversaries? Oh, okay. That's a hard one. I'll talk about what I do. So for birthdays and anniversaries for people I love, and it looks different, especially like you didn't say if this was like newer or old, so I'll kind of answer in two ways. Um when Jake first passed away, yeah, I'm just drinking on anniversaries, you know what I mean? But with it's really hard. It's really, really hard. I think the best advice I can give here is be open-minded on how you and your body and your brain will feel as these days approach. Okay? Because it doesn't I hope I explained this right. But it doesn't always feel like how you think it's going to feel. So, of course, like it's hard. Like Jake's first birthday without him, because he died in July, a month before his birthday, so he'll always be 21. And I turned 22. Like my birthday is in April, so I turned 22, and then he would have turned 22 in August. Uh so when that first birthday came around and when I got another year older and he didn't, it broke my heart. It was so, so hard, and I didn't go to work. I think if you know you're gonna be sad, and I say open-minded because we could be sad, we could be angry, we could be numb that day. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, sometimes you just don't know. That's why we talked about those stages of grief, because they are not linear. So just be open-minded. I think, like, just prepare yourself. I recommend taking the day off. If you can, do or be in a safe space where you are able to do the things that you need for that day. Because fuck that. Like the world will tell you, or society will tell you to move on the year after. Oh, but those are such hard years. Those first 5 years are so hard. And even 13 years later, like I'm just like, fuck, I'm just gonna keep getting older and older and this person isn't fucking gonna be here. Like, what the fuck? Like that's how I feel at 13 years. The more I age and the more life I see. And it's just so my biggest advice here is be open-minded about how you may feel on the day of or after. Like, it's weird, but our body carries things, and sometimes we don't have control over how it may show up. So my biggest thing is take the day off, plan ahead, make sure you just have the time and the space to take up for what you need to do, whatever that may look like for you on an anniversary or birthday. And for me personally, these days, um, I do like to light a candle. I like to talk to them. I like to call my family and talk about memories. Like, more recently, I reached out to my dad because I'm looking to um like create a project because I miss Jake's voice. I miss a lot of the people's voices that I can't hear anymore. So I like reached out and I'm like, oh, I want to make something. So maybe it's making something for your loved one on their anniversary or their birthday, or maybe it's going out to their favorite place to eat or having their favorite food. Anything like that that can honor the person that you've lost, the loved one that you've lost on their day or on their birthday or anniversaries is so, so important because it keeps them alive. We don't wanna forget our people, ever. At least for me, like, no way. No way. I'm always gonna be talking about them. I'm going to take them with me because as long as I'm here, they're here, and yeah, so I hope that helps, and I'm so sorry if this is the first one or even if it's a one down the road. I just send lots of love to you however you spend the day. It's valid. I just really recommend being open-minded as to how your body, your mind may react on that day. Um, and definitely holding space to take care of yourself that day. I don't believe in pushing through when it comes to grief or loss. Like, I don't. I really truly believe we need to honor that because pushing it down and just not honoring it is what led me to do really terrible not ter- make bad choices for myself, put me in situations I probably shouldn't have been in, all the things, and we can talk about that in a different episode. Um, but definitely make space for yourself and for your loved one on those days. So I hope that helps. Love you. Um, and then I guess we'll answer two more. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is a hard one. I feel like, what do I say to friends who disappear? And that just makes me really sad. Not for you, for them, because they're missing out on a great fucking friend. Okay. So, what I can say here is that if your friends in your life cannot hold space for your grief or make it taboo when you bring this up, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Find community, find people who get it because you're not alone in this. And if you have people in your life that are making you feel more alone than not, it's time to find better people. And that's okay. Those are boundaries we learn to put up because of who we are now and how we've changed due to our loss and due to our grief and due to what we need. And I just want to say, I'm so sorry if you have people bailing on you in the time that you need it the most. That is not like, I'm just really sorry. And I want you to know that you're not alone. I'm a friend. If you need anything, um, ever want to chat more, um, send more questions my way or even a longer email. I'm always here to talk and to, you know, sit with you in your grief because what I would say is, you can reach out if you genuinely, if this is a long-term friend and you've had a recent loss and you feel like they're just like pulling back because they don't know how to handle it. If you want to add this to your plate, because you do not have to, um, you can reach out and let them know the way that you're feeling and what you may need from them. Because at the end of the day, relationships, platonic or romantic, depend on communication. And I know it's hard to have these conversations, especially if you're in the middle of grieving. That's why I'm saying, like, add it to your plate if you want to. But if you don't want to right now, don't. But definitely reach out to them if it is like something you want to add to your plate. And if it is a friendship that you've cherished for a long time and you do feel that maybe they're just like pulling back because they don't know what or to do because maybe they've never experienced loss. Um, so just holding some grace and benefit of the doubt there. But if they're straight up being a fucking piece of shit and an asshole and not supporting you, like I say, good fucking riddance and get rid of that. Yeah. So one or two ways, whichever your situation looks like, that's what my Jack attack would, yeah, feisty advice there. But sometimes you gotta let friendships go. Sometimes friendships, I've learned, okay? I've learned through therapy. I'm like, oh, wow, I shouldn't have been in that friendship. I was a people pleaser. Again, episode for another time. But like, communication is key with friendships, with all different types of relationships. So again, if you want to add that to your plate, you genuinely believe this is someone that's been in your life and you want to be like, hey, like, do you want to be here for me? Like, make that call. But if it really is just someone who is draining your energy while you are also carrying grief and loss, like, goodbye. Hasta never. No, no. No, no. Bye-bye. Um, so yeah, that's my little tidbit on that. Sorry if that was a little aggressive, but I just get passionate about this, I want to make sure all my people are okay and have good support system. So, hmm, okay. All right. Last question here I'm going to answer is, why am I grieving harder now than at the beginning? I like to talk about this. So this is a really, really good question. So thank you for sending this in. These were all really good questions. So thank you everybody who sent in a question. I appreciate you. Um, so I think this goes back to the stages of grief, right? Maybe in the beginning of this, you were in denial and now it's coming to the surface. And I think personally, what I was just talking about, the more life happens and the more that you want to reach for that phone call and the more things keep happening and you can't call that person, I think that's why things become harder over time because we have to go through a whole new level of acceptance. And again, they're not linear. So maybe that numbness was hanging out there for a really long time during this loss that you've had. And again, like during the loss that you've had. And now that acceptance is starting to brew because it's been longer and we're not at the beginning. And maybe things have happened more so in your life that you wanted your person, your loved one to be there for, and they haven't. That can definitely bring up grief and make you feel things that you haven't experienced before because the body holds it. We got to remember the body holds on to things. I think that's the biggest lesson I'm learning here. The more I'm on this journey, the more I'm learning is that if we don't feel it, if we push it down, it's going to come back up. And this may be that. This may be a situation where things are coming back up and we want to lean into it. Journal. Why are you feeling this days? Pay attention to the dates, the months. Maybe it's near an anniversary, a birthday, something you did with your person that like it could be all of these things. But I just want to make sure it's okay. It's okay to grieve harder later down the line. Um and I just hope you're not alone. And I definitely, definitely relate to that. Especially with yeah, just a lot of things. Like I really do relate to this, especially with Jake being 13 years gone. I really, sometimes I'm just like, damn, like on my wedding day, I was like, oh, I wish like Jake could have met my husband. Like I really wish Jake could have met my partner. Um, it sucks. Cause I know that they would be best fucking friends. Honestly, like that is something I always knew when I met Thunder. And it's kind of how I yeah, just new. Like, so just know you're valid and definitely reach out for support, therapy. Like I said, like those are things that can help you understand this more. And we'll continue to talk about these things, but definitely with community therapy. And I just want you to know it's definitely normal and valid to grieve harder than you were at the beginning for some of us, like nothing is linear. All of our experiences are different. Of course, there's similarities with like the feelings of grief and loss, but I hope this answered your question. Um so while we wind down, that is the end of Twist and Tell. I'm really enjoying this segment this season. I just want to say thank you to everyone who sent an anonymous question. I truly, truly appreciate you. I really love having these conversations and connecting with you all and sharing more of my experiences and just holding place for our loved ones and talking about this because it deserves to be talked about. So if you ever want to be on Twist and Tell, submit your questions to twistedwanderer418@gmail.com. Let me know if you'd like me to read who you are or anonymous. That's how we're doing this. And yeah, that pretty much. Oh, yeah. So that's the end of Twist and Tell. Pretty much winding down this episode, you beautiful people. But I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, I would love, 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 and greatly appreciate you if you subscribe to the podcast, follow the podcast. YouTube, it's under the Twisted Collective. Something more exciting things coming your way. So YouTube, The Twisted Collected, under podcasts, Unaligned and Unfiltered, season 2. Instagram, Unaligned and Unfiltered podcast. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube under Unaligned and Unfiltered podcast. And I will see you all on Sunday for Scully Sunday. But please, again, if you like the podcast, you enjoy the podcast, like it, leave a comment. All that helps us grow this community bigger and be able to connect. So excited. Again, look out for the website dropping April 1st, the Twisted Collective. It's going to be a resource hub, a lighthouse, if you will, for all the twists of your life. We're going to have scoliosis resources, ADHD resources, grief resources, blogs. We're going to have a bunch of good stuff, and we're going to have a community built into the website so we're able to connect and talk that way as well. So, really excited to continue this season with all of you beautiful people. Um, Again, until next time, I love ya. Take care of your brain, take care of your spine, and I'll see you on Sunday. Love you. Bye.